Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Commercify. So let's discuss composition levy scheme under GST. Before discussing the composition levy scheme itself, let's discuss the difference between normal levy scheme and composition levy scheme, because I'm pretty sure that if you do this difference before jumping into the scheme itself, you will be able to figure out what this scheme is about. So let's start. Normal levy scheme is covered under Section 9, subsection 1 of CGST Act. But composition levy scheme is covered under Section 10 of CGST Act. ITC is available on inward supply in case of normal levy, but in case of composition levy, ITC is not available on inward supply. Registered persons can make intrastate as well as interstate supplies, but composition taxable person cannot make interstate supply. He can make only intrastate supply. In case of normal levy, any registered person can opt for normal scheme, but in case of composition levy, only specified taxable person whose aggregate turnover is greater than 1.5 crore can opt for the scheme. In case of normal levy, there are a total of 37 returns that have to be filed each year, but in case of composition levy scheme, only 5 returns have to be filed every year by the composition taxable person. In case of normal levy, detailed books of accounts are maintained by the supplier, but in case of composition levy, less books of accounts are maintained. There is less compliance burden on the supplier. In case of normal levy, higher tax rates are there. 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%. This is a 4-tier tax structure that is followed under normal levy scheme. But in case of composition levy, only 0.1%, 1%, 5% rates of taxes are there. And in case of normal levy, classification of goods from services is required, but no such classification is required in case of composition levy. So ninth point is about audit. In case of normal levy, audit is required if aggregate turnover exceeds 2 crores. But in case of composition levy scheme, we have read that the composition taxable person's income aggregate turnover is usually less than 1.5 crores. So no question of audit is, audit arises under GST composition levy. 10th point is about the burden of GST, which can be shifted on the consumer in case of नॉर्मल लेवी बट कॉम्पोजिशन लेवी के अंडर जो सप्लायर होता है उसे अपनी पॉकेट से कंसेशनल रेट ऑफ टैक्स देना पड़ता है. In case of normal levy, normal registered person will issue tax invoice. जो registered person होता है under GST normally वो tax invoice issue करता है. But in case of composition levy, the supplier issues bill of supply. Now let's discuss what Section 10 is about. We in the very first point we did that the composition levy scheme is dealt under Section 10 of CGST Act 2017. So let's discuss the certain guidelines that are given under Section 10. First one is normal tax scheme is not efficient for small suppliers. So composition levy scheme was introduced. We know that there were lots of compliance burdens under normal tax scheme. 37 returns have to be filed every year. So it is not a cup of tea for every single supplier. So keeping in mind the state of small suppliers, this scheme was introduced. So under normal levy scheme, there are less compliance burden. इसके लिए ही ये स्कीम इशू की गई थी. Procedural ease for small suppliers and administrative convenience. Again, वही returns file करना and all that stuff is completely eliminated under composition levy scheme. Average turnover is taxed at flat rate. We have read that जो composition levy scheme के अंदर टैक्स रेट्स हैं वो यूजुअली 1%, 5% या 0.1% है. तो वो फ्लैट रेट टैक्सेशन सिस्टम माना जाता है. एक टैक्स ही usually the income of the supplier is taxed at a flat rate. Scheme optional है suppliers के लिए. They can either opt for it or they can opt out for it. There is no compulsion as such. Scheme has no lock-in period. That is, supplier may opt out of the scheme anytime. इसका कोई भी lock-in period नहीं है. But yes, this is obvious that if you have opted for the scheme for one financial year, only at the end of one financial year you will opt out of the scheme. So yeah, it has no lock-in period. Now let's discuss who is after all eligible for this composition levy scheme. Eligible assessee is registered person. Whoever is registered under GST can opt for this scheme. Eligibility limit ये depend करता है normal state versus special category state के ऊपर. नॉर्मल स्टेट वो स्टेट है जो कि स्पेशल कैटेगरी स्टेट नहीं है. ऑब्वियसली नॉर्मल स्टेट के जो पर्सन्स की अगर टर्नओवर 1.5 करोड़ के ऊपर है तो वो कॉम्पोजिशन स्कीम के लिए एलिजिबल हो जाता है. बट इन केस ऑफ स्पेशल कैटेगरी स्टेट्स लाइक अरुणाचल प्रदेश, नागालैंड, मणिपुर, सिक्किम, मेघालय, उत्तराखंड, मिजोरम, त्रिपुरा, इन स्टेट्स के अंडर अगर कोई भी असेसी है जो कि एलिजिबल है और रजिस्टर्ड है अंडर जीएसटी और उसकी एग्रीगेट टर्नओवर अप टू 75 lakhs है, then he is eligible to opt for this composition levy scheme. Now let's discuss the only exception to Section 10. Section 10 complete act overrule करता है except Section 9 subsection 3 and Section 9 subsection 4 of GST Act 2017. ये दोनों सेक्शंस डील करते हैं विद रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म. अगर इनवर्ट सप्लाई रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म में कवर्ड है तो रिवर्स चार्ज मैकेनिज्म में जीएसटी पे करना होगा उस सप्लायर को, इवन इफ द एसएससी हैज ऑप्टेड फॉर कॉम्पोजिशन लेवी स्कीम. इसका मतलब है दैट ही कैन नॉट सरपास Section 9 subsection 3 and Section 9 subsection 4 of CGST Act 2017 even if he is covered under this composition levy scheme. What does aggregate turnover means? Aggregate turnover means हर goods, हर services जो आपने previous financial year में supply की हैं, whether in intrastate or interstate taxable supply, it was an intrastate or interstate taxable supply, or it was an exempted supply of goods. And in case of services, even if it was a taxable supply of services or it was an exempted supply of services, except for interest, तो वो aggregate turnover का part माना जाएगा. It means including everything except for interest. That's it. Then it's about Rule 7. Rule 7 is about the rates, concessional rates under composition levy scheme. In case of manufacturer of goods, 1% is applicable. In case of trader of goods, 1% is applicable. Restaurant services, 5% is applicable. Services provided with the above category means अगर हम restaurant services के साथ और कोई भी services provide कर रहे हैं तो 1% additional tax concessional rate applicable होगा हमारे ऊपर. And if we are supplying only services, then 6% concessional rate is applicable on us. Then when is return filed and the return is filed in which form? The taxable person under composition levy is required to furnish only one return, that is GSTR 4 on a quarterly basis. उसे हर quarter एक return file करनी पड़ती है, that is GSTR 4, and one final return before 31st December of next financial year. That is, in total, he has to file only 5 returns. So that's all about composition levy scheme. Thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you.